My name is Happy, and I am a medical student working with the Wisconsin Voices for Recovery to bring you Saturday Night Chat. Saturday Night Chat is a monthly chat that creates a space for people to share their recovery journey and to show people in seeking recovery that they are not alone and that recovery is possible. So today we'll be hearing from Mary Jo. And Mary Jo, thank you again for being here and sharing your time and story with us. So to start us off, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you currently do, and what brought you into the space?
My name is Mary Jo Redmond Ellis. I live in a little bit past La Crosse, Wisconsin, Stoddard. I work at Gunderson Health System as a medical assistant. I also work for Next Steps for Change as a recovery coach and a peer support specialist. And I forgot, I also work as a residential specialist for Gunderson Health System as well in their residential inpatient. That's what I do. And what brought me here today is to really voice my, not concerns, but voice my opinion on stigma and to help get the word out on we do recover. So it's really important to get that out to anyone that wants to know that recovery is possible and that's not just always subjected to what we think we know is addiction. There's all sorts of phases that go along with addiction. So I take any opportunity I can to tell my story and to answer any questions people may have about addiction.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Mary Jo. And can you tell us a little bit more about like how you got connected with Wisconsin Voices for Recovery?
I did a episode on for Voices of Recovery on their stigma. They do every monthly sessions with people who want to voice their opinion on stigma, and I answered some questions for them and I got connected with them. I just really enjoy, it's such an uplifting thing to know that people want to know about stigma and want to know about addiction. So that's kind of how I hooked up with Voices of Recovery.
Yeah, that's amazing. And thanks for sharing that. And to start us off, then, can you tell us more about like what your journey is or your journey to the road of recovery?
Sure. So I was born in a pretty well-to-do, high to middle class family. My parents owned two restaurants in a small town. We grew up very, without need of anything. I went to a private parochial and private high school, graduated and moved to the La Crosse area in the early 90s, put myself through X-ray school, worked as an X-ray technician, moved up north to like the Superior Duluth area, got a job there, and got married, had two beautiful kids, lived on 20 acres of land. I mean, it sounds like the perfect life, right? This sounds like a textbook. This is, I was missing the white picket fence. But early on, when I was growing up, my mom really emphasized with most of us that you don't tell anybody your problems. You don't discuss things with anyone. You portray that everything is okay. So growing up, that's how we all acted, like everything was okay. So, the emphasis of white picket fence, your kids are dressed right, they go to school, you go to church, all those things. But as we know, there's stresses and things in life that come upon us, and we don't know how to handle them in a healthy way. I never was taught about a healthy way to handle stress, to handle discomfort, to handle unhappiness even. So I became really kind of like just really unhappy in my situation. I married a man who it just wasn't a real good situation. And so I'd get my kids all, gone to school. I cleaned my house. I would do everything possible. And then I would reward myself with a glass of wine. So every night about, 4 or 5 o'clock before we had dinner, I would have a glass of wine. And it just kind of continued that for many years. So I consider myself very functioning for a very long time. But my marriage was kind of falling apart. I was just really unhappy. And even the wine wasn't working as well as I wanted it to. And we went to counseling, and we decided to maybe move back to the La Crosse area where our family was, where things were maybe less stress for both of us. So my husband, he had got a different job in the federal government. I got a better job in the area as an x-ray technician. And we thought things looked great. We bought our dream home again. Our kids went to school that were a block away. Just perfect. However, I wasn't really addressing really what the problems were. So again, I was working like second shift. I'd come home and I'd have some beers at night and just, didn't think anything of it. And some things just weren't adding up in my marriage as well. And things kind of took a really dark turn. We were having a bonfire with our current neighbors, and all four of us were drinking. So there was a lot of alcohol going on. And I had went to bed early that night and woke up. And that night it came to light that my husband was sexually assaulting me when I was passed out in his eyes. I kind of remembered certain other things that went on in the past and put two and two together and confronted him. And he did admit that. So when that came to light, it completely erupted my life. I did not know where to turn. I really felt all alone. I did not know who to talk to. I called like a hotline for sexual assault, and the lady on the other end pretty much told me that if I called the police that he'd be a registered sex offender, and pretty much talked me out of doing anything about it. So I did seek individual counseling, but really felt alone, really felt nobody really understood what I was going through. So not only did I had unhappiness in my marriage, then that just took a turn that I just wanted to get out. I just wanted to escape everything. And I started to drink mainly on weekends from Friday night through Sunday afternoon till I had to go to work on Monday. And I just wanted something or someone to take all the pain away. I decided in the fall of 2011, I kind of started talking to my husband about separating, thinking that would help out. But before that, I had gotten into some legal trouble. I had 2 DUIs in 2008 and 2009 because of me going out every night and not really taking care of myself. And he kind of used those against me, and he threatened that if I would leave, that he would take the kids and I would never see them again. So it was just really, I was also scared then that I was not going to see my children anymore. I didn't want to leave. I didn't know what to do. So I kind of stuck it out for a few more years, or for a few more months, into, I believe it was March of 2012. And I just felt like I was not going in a good place, that I felt if I left him and got rid of that situation, that I would be okay. So I filed for divorce, and the battle really started. He really had me followed. People wrote letters about how terrible of a mother I was, just beating me further down in the ground. And I didn't know any other way but to isolate and drink alcohol. So those two combinations, in any sense of the word, are dangerous for anyone: isolation and alcohol and trauma. So I had all three coming together at me. I was afraid to go to the grocery store for fear somebody was going to see me. I managed to keep my job. I managed to keep all those things together. And in December of 2012, I was officially divorced, and it all ended up as 50-50 custody. I was grateful for that. And then I bought my first home in March of 2013. Super excited, thought this was a new chance. But the big thing is I did not address the drinking. I didn't address any of that. So I thought, if this would happen, I'll be okay. But when you're, as we know about addiction, genetics play, but when I look back at my entire life, all I ever did was try to disappear, try to numb out any pain or discomfort, never really hitting what was wrong in my whole life. And so of course, you give me my own home and only 50% of my kids, the other 50% I spent drinking. And this time it was isolation, alone, and which is almost can be deadly. I met my second husband in 2014 in April, and I had managed to hide a lot of my drinking from him. I still kept a job, I still paid all my bills. And so when you look at me, I look like I was perfectly all together, just like my mother taught us. Always look like you are in good shape. And I managed to do that, but your body can only take so much. And in July of 2014, I had my first stint of pancreatitis. So as we know in the medical field, pancreatitis can be deadly. My triglycerides coming in were 2,000, which we know on normal is like 150, I believe. And I was told, they asked me at the time, how much do you drink? Of course, I was in complete denial. I said, oh, I just drink here and there, never really expressing the truth about what I really was drinking. And I kind of shrugged it off as it wasn't alcohol that caused this. I got out of the hospital a week later, very traumatizing. You think it would scare anybody, but I wasn't quite ready to admit it was the alcohol. I continued to drink the way I did even before I got in the hospital. My husband and I, he's not my husband, we were married in April. It was a great, he was very supportive, but didn't really understand about addiction, alcoholism, any of that. Didn't really, kind of thought something was not quite right, but didn't quite know how to put a finger on it. And then in September of that year, I again got another stent of pancreatitis due to completely drinking this time. I went in I think it was Saturday, and I got out on a Monday. So in my mind, oh, this isn't so bad. It was okay. They gave me some pain medication, gave me some IV, didn't eat for a few days, and I was out. Again, total denial, did not want to think alcohol had any play, even though the doctor standing in front of me told me you're going to die if you continue to drink. Was not ready to give that up. And then May of 2017, I got another stent of pancreatitis due to gallstones. So they took my gallbladder out, which then gave me 6 to 8 weeks off from work. So that pretty much gave me the green light to drink all day long. So that's what I did. I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have any responsibilities. My husband owned his own business. We were fine there. Money was fine. And I just continued to get way out of hand. Unfortunately, my drinking just continued. When I tried to go back to work, I was unable to. I could not stay sober even to go back to work. I took a leave of absence, went to outpatient therapy thinking that would work, but the outpatient therapist scared me, so I didn't want to go back, so I did not go back to the therapist. And then it was Christmas time, and I continued to drink through Christmas, and then in January, I got my fourth stent of pancreatitis. I, at that point, really decided I was defeated. I could not control what I was drinking. So I did go into the inpatient program at Gunderson, which I now work for. So I was actually a patient at one time there. I spent 28 days in the inpatient and really got a chance to take a look at my entire life in that time frame. Really understood that I spent my whole life running from feelings, didn't want to deal with things that made me uncomfortable. And I didn't have any way to like decompress. I didn't have any way to relax. I saw alcohol drum out in my whole life and thought that was the only way. I got out of treatment in February, but as we know, treatment is not 100%. They told me not to go back to work right away, but I felt structure was the most important. Unfortunately, I went back to work and relapsed 2 weeks later. Then at that time, I lost my job back, and then I would put a month together, relapse, put another month together, relapse. And then I had a really bad relapse in June. It lasted 2 weeks long. And it really, there was something about that relapse that really made me see how much I wasn't just affecting me, I was affecting my whole life, my family. My daughter went to New York for a dance. I couldn't pick her up at the airport. I was too drunk. My son had a baseball tournament. I couldn't pick him up. And I remember hearing him on the phone, "Don't bother mom, you're drunk." And it just hit me like a brick. And I remembered I needed to change something about myself and what I was doing. And I really got involved into AA. I really tried to, I needed to really surrender that I was not controlling this anymore. And I decided to get a sponsor. I really took a dive into things. But when you set yourself in unsafe situations, which as addicts and alcoholics, we do all the time because, well, number one, alcohol is everywhere. So we, as a family, went to the Dells, Wisconsin Dells, and I was just surrounded too much by alcohol and I just snapped. And I had ended up relapsing for a weekend. And Monday morning, I just woke up and I said, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I just don't want to do this." And I call it the insane train because that's what it is. Once my train leaves the station, I won't come back. I just continue all day long with drinking. So I went to the emergency room. I had them help me get through some withdrawals, and I have stayed sober since. And that was August 23rd of 2017. And made I just made myself realize that I do not want to do this. And it was just such an amazing feeling when you just come to that realization that there's a better way to live.
Yeah, thank you so much for like telling that very elaborate story and like for your vulnerability to be able to share that too. I think you interlaced into your story really well, like the challenges that you faced with the alcohol use and how were challenged by that on so many multiple occasions.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask too, from those challenges, did you find any like success stories that like helped you get through it? Like, what did you see that was helpful for you?
Well, I mean, when you go to meetings and you are surrounded by sobriety, you you hear those success stories over and over. You get people that you sit in meetings and they tell you things and you look at them like, "Yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah, that's what I need to do." Um, I learned from a lot of old timers about how to stay sober. I learned from my sponsor. Um, I sorry. I just I think, I I watch a lot of podcasts. I really dove into my own emotional support. I think that as we need to understand how this affects our lives. It's not just about the drinking. It's about our emotional well-being. And for me, vulnerability and opening up my life and really expressing what was wrong really helped me find more solutions to my problems.
Yeah, great for sharing that. What would you say that like, was the most therapeutic thing from that was able to help you? You listed so many like great things that has influenced how you were able to change your life and how it's kind of helped you with your substance use. But what would you say was the most therapeutic thing that you found most helpful for you?
I mean, when you get rid of the toxins out of your body, you're able to sit with yourself. I love spending time just sitting outside where before I didn't even want to be in my own head for more than 5 minutes. So taking that time, I exercise more than I've ever exercised before. I really take time to self-care, yoga. I just purchased a hot tub, to be honest, and that's getting installed soon. I just really believe self-care is huge. We have to listen to our bodies. If we're feeling stressed, why are we feeling stressed? What can we do? Because me, stress meant, oh, I can go have a drink and that'll get me unstressed. But what a lot of people don't understand is that alcohol isn't used for those reasons. You get more anxiety and more depression the more you drink. And I had anxiety up the wazoo when I was continuing to drink. It wasn't helping with any of those things. maybe part-time or for a very short time, I didn't feel anything. But once I started to sober up a little bit, it was too difficult for me to even try to even get through the day. And now I can sit quietly in a small space, meditation, reading, things that I would never have done before because my mind just wouldn't stop. And once I've learned some tools, meditation and yoga is not something you just like, oh, I'm going to go pick it up and I'm going to feel great about it. It's like something you work at, So I've been working at that. I've committed myself to go every Saturday to yoga. I try to meditate. I'd love to meditate more, but unfortunately, time is an essence to my life. Working as a recovery coach and a peer support specialist is very therapeutic for me. When I can actually honestly say to someone, I understand how you feel. I mean that because I know what it's like to want something so badly, but you are unable to accomplish it because you want to drink alcohol.
Yeah, and I would agree, like stress plays such a huge important factor in how we choose to cope with things. And I think the ways you had done it with yoga, meditation, that is a really beautiful therapeutic thing that you've done to kind of help you with the challenges
Yeah.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you mentioned your husband being a supportive network for you during this
Yes.
time as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about like the people, the loved ones around you that kind of help you towards the road to
Mhm.
recovery?
Yeah, he's been extremely supportive. And I think it's really, my therapist had suggested he go to Al-Anon, which is for family members of people who suffer from disease of addiction. And he got a better understanding about it. So many of us, people that don't understand it think it's a moral thing or just get over it or don't do it today. And this sets them up to say it's a disease. This is something I've chemically changed my brain. This is what I think is the right thing to do, and I know it's not, but my chemical body wants it. So it set him up to understand it, so that made life way easier for me at home. So I'd asked him, we do not have alcohol in our house, even though he can drink normally. I just, for my own safety and I need a safe place. And my home is my safe place. So, we have that understanding. He's very honorable to that. My kids are my huge support system. I have a son and daughter. They very much understand. I have sat them down. They're very aware of addiction. Um, I've been very open about there's some parts I have left out of the story for them, but I have told them, that I used alcohol in not a healthy way. Self-medication is just, so I kind of explained to them so they can look at their own life and say, hey, maybe I'm not making the right decisions at this point. They're a huge factor. Um, I'm very open about all my jobs about it so that people can be supportive. I think it's everyone's preference if they want to tell people or not, but I felt the more people that knew my situation would be more understanding and more helpful. So I wouldn't feel like I was living like a double life almost. Because a lot of times, we go to work and they go out at night and you'd say, oh, if you lie about it, secrets keep us sick. We know that as part of being in recovery. So the more open and honest I can be about my situation, the better I feel about it.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. And I think it's wonderful that you had your husband and your kids really support you throughout this journey and like just having them work with you as a team to really help you through this journey is really great. Would you
Yes.
say there was any like one individual that was your biggest supporter throughout this journey?
Um, no, because there's a network of people. I go to a lot of women's AA meetings, and we really connect as women to keep us all kind of like accountable for, if you don't show up a week, they're going to say, why aren't you there? What's going on? Are you okay? There's like multiple of us. There isn't one person because if I think about it, this has been a journey of many people. I've met so many close uh, female friends now that we all can kind of relate if something's not going the way we want it to go. And our first was to go to the alcohol, and now we talk about the problem. And I mean, my husband, yes, he's a great supporter, but sometimes you just need another female person to like bounce this off of, and especially someone who's in recovery. So you have a female friend and someone in recovery is golden. So that's what I really look to my female people to help me through any kind of conflicts I may have at the time.
Yeah, it seems like the network is what really made a big difference, that support group rather than just one
Absolutely.
individual.
Yeah. Connection is just the key to sobriety, the key to recovery. I know a lot of people that think they can do it alone, and it's really difficult. It's like white knuckling a bad snowstorm, and you think you're going to make it through, and we don't have to do this alone. So I don't know why anyone would want to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And since it's so hard to do it alone, like what have you done yourself to kind of like find those networks? I know it's not always the easiest and it's always challenging sometimes for people to reach out when it comes
Yes.
down to like substance use. So with that caveat, what have you seen that has helped you be able to like reach out to these networks and kind of help you change your life and perspective about using networks to kind of help with the substance use disorders?
So when I got into recovery in 2017, peer support wasn't even heard of. We didn't really talk a lot about recovery coach or peer support specialist. That would have been really golden when I was getting sober. When I got sober, obviously I went through inpatient treatment, which hooks you up with a lot of networks. But like in La Crosse, we have multiple networks. Our Cooley Recovery Center. You can even Google things nowadays to say we're online, where can I get a recovery coach? Where can I get a peer support specialist? And lots of times working in where I work as a medical assistant, if I see someone who may be struggling as a patient and want to talk about some substance use issues, I usually will go in and introduce myself as a recovery coach and ask them, do you want some meeting information? Do you want information for a recovery coach? Do you want information for outpatient therapy? I have like this whole book that I use as kind of call it my Bible of the peer support specialists. So people can, to me, there's so many resources that people don't even know about, but that I try to get out. And really, people hear about meetings through word of mouth. So if they hear there's a good meeting somewhere, you just hear it in the recovery community. And, La Crosse is, like Madison, they're bigger, but they're still small communities. So people know each other from the recovery community. I would tell you, I have probably 1,000 people I connect with in recovery on social media, and all those people are in recovery or some connected to me in some way that way. It's amazing.
That is truly amazing, and I think really speaks upon like how powerful it is to be able to have that huge network to support each other too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The next question here is like, in your road to recovery, did you have any concerns as you were doing it? And if you did, what concerns did you have? Or if none at all, that's okay as well.
Well, we learn a lot lots of things with the stigma comes into play. When I went to treatment, I won't try to go right back to my old job. You know, when what I've learned in recovery is we need to change just about everything about us. To go back to your same old life is almost the same triggers that you had before you tried to get sober. So when I went back to work, I went back to the same environment that I left, and that was toxic for me. So of course I was setting myself up to relapse because I didn't really take the time to like, what do I need? What am I going to need from this? And that was really the number one thing that I hurt myself with. I think the stigma thing is hard. I was hospitalized and I was in the ERs a lot. I was one of those patients for multiple times. And I really felt that multiple times, even though I am a professional. I have a degree. I worked in the hospital healthcare my entire career since I've been 19 years old. And I felt it. It was hard when I went to the ERs and felt like I sat in the room for 4 hours and nobody even came to see how I was doing. What we do now, we're changing the stigma, we're changing the way people look. So recovery coaches are on call and they go into the ERs and they actually try to help guide people to if they want to go to detox or hook them up. We actually are on call 7 days a week in our La Crosse emergency rooms, both at Gunderson and at Mayo, which to me is amazing. I had taken call for a while. I had stepped away, but I want to get back into it because I think it's so important work for people to know that you can call someone and someone will come there and sit with you and you won't feel like the way I felt, because I did feel multiple times. And I'm sure, I'm not saying anybody was a bad, doctor or bad nurse or anything. I think it's just that stigma that goes along with people coming in with substance use disorder. As we all know, I was one of those people. I used to talk about those people, and now I am one of those people. So you just never know where you may land in your life. And that's where I have learned is, you always got to remember where you came from and who you are, and know that you are not infallible, and you are not the, there's no, it doesn't discriminate. I guess that's what I'm really trying to say. I had came from an extremely well-to-do family. I had my whole life set up, and there are 2 out of 5. I have another sibling who suffers from substance use disorder. So 2 out of the 5 of us have an addiction. That's not discriminatory. It's just genetics play huge on it. Your isolation and trauma, all those things play in a factor of your own life.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I totally agree. I think that anybody from any walk of life can be affected by this, no matter who they are. And it's easy. It's nothing that you see in the movies or in the TVs
No.
that really depict it. Really, it's anybody that can be affected from whoever you are, whatever upbringing you bring. And I think you share that really well.
Mm-hmm. It's true. I've learned that myself, and I thought I had it all together, and as long as I looked like I was put together, I was together, but I was not together. And when we think about unmanageability of our lives, it comes in a different version. I mean, unmanageability we see in the movies, like someone homeless underneath the bridge. That's what we think of. Oh, that's an alcoholic. But when you function and you go to work, but yet you're still not managing your life the way you should. I didn't manage things very well, but I hid them very well. And that's where that can get really kind of tricky. Like, you can talk to someone and they'll say, well, I have a job, I pay my bills, I don't have a problem. I did that for years and years. When I now look back at my own life, I can totally see the progression of the disease, starting from when I started self-medicating with wine till I couldn't stop drinking all day long. Total progression of the disease. And would I have said to you, 20 years earlier, well, you're going to be coming out, you have a substance use disorder? I would have said, no, I have a job, I pay my bills, my kids are dressed, and all those things. Just, one thing I always tell people that reach out to me, I'm very open about my recovery, because I want people to be able to contact me. And if they have concerns, or they have a family member that they maybe have concerns about, and I'm more than happy to have that. I think that's so important, to be open and honest about your recovery. And I always tell them, self-medication, if you are self-medicating for any reason, you need to take a step back and ask, why are you self-medicating? If you're not sleeping at night, go find another solution. Alcohol isn't a sleep aid. I've had multiple people ask me that, and I say, go talk to your doctor about it. Let's say they can help you with something way safer than alcohol. Trauma. I wish somebody would said, well, you need to go to trauma therapy, or you need to, I wasn't given any of those ideas. I was told to actually forget about it and it'll go away. Well, it didn't go away. It just stayed in my mind, and I thought I could just clear it out by drinking alcohol.
Agree, and I think it's great that you mentioned that too, because it's sometimes not the easiest thing to understand that there are these therapies, there's things available for you to help, and other options for you to kind of treat like any stressors that you have. That's a lot safer than alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of, I think a great segue from that is that since you've been through this experience really well, what words of wisdom do you have for others that are currently struggling with like alcohol use or just substance use in general?
I always tell people they're not alone, to try to reach out, to try. I know how hard it is to walk into a meeting or walk into a place and ask for help. And, if you have a regular doctor, to have, reach out to them, to express, they have more ideas about where they can maybe guide you to, or, but I think people think they're the only person that deals with this, and you're not. I used to think I was so unique, and I wasn't unique at all. There were a lot of people that have the same problems and just don't want to don't want to tag to them or don't want to really be honest about their drinking. I think that's the hardest thing, is to really be honest about how much you're actually drinking. And the long-term effects of alcohol use, as we all know, sometimes it's irreversible. And that's something that people just don't understand. They like worry about it. I'll worry about it later. You worry about it later and you can't go back. So that really sticks in my mind, that I'm so grateful that I was able to get sober with no after effects, that I really took my health and my life seriously and really understood that, you're given one chance at this. And I was just, gratitude is something I live with. I used to think that it's the things I don't have and I should do this and should do that. And I think today of all the things I have and all the gifts I have.
Well, thanks for those words of wisdoms. And as we start to wrap up here, do you have any like final thoughts that you would like to share?
No, I just, I hope that people really, if they're struggling, to try to reach out to someone, if there's a family member you can trust, or if there's anyone. I mean, social medias are really good. I mean, there's lots of outlets on social media, even just to join a group. You don't necessarily have to participate, but just to, even if you want to ask questions or if you want to reach out somehow, just to know that you're not alone and it doesn't discriminate and it's not about a moral thing. It's a disease.
Thanks so much, Mary Jo, for sharing that information, and thank you for joining us for the Saturday night chat. I think it was a great pleasure to be able to hear your story, and I know that other people would really benefit from this story as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.